The Dark History of Clipperton Island. This is Clipperton Island, a tiny, desolate coral ring situated in the heart of the Pacific Ocean. During the late 1800s, nations battled for control over it due to a scarce resource found on the island. To assert their claim, Mexico dispatched multiple families to settle there, and provisions were routinely delivered to sustain them. Tragically, at a certain point, these vital shipments ceased arriving, and once it became evident they had been forsaken, one of the residents exposed himself as a genuine monster, and this horror had nothing to do with starvation. This is their terrifying tale. In the eastern Pacific, a small, insignificant island lies barren and unwelcoming, revealing almost nothing of the horrors that once unfolded there. It is thought to have been initially discovered by Spanish explorer Ferdinand Magellan in 1521, but its confirmed sighting in 1711 is regarded as the official discovery. That year, an English privateer named John Clipperton was navigating the Pacific, assaulting Spanish vessels, when he stumbled upon the minuscule landmass now called Clipperton Island. Spanning nearly 3.5 square miles, or about 9 square kilometers, this small territory is almost entirely composed of coral in a ring-like formation, technically classifying it as an atoll rather than an island. At the center of this ring lies a stagnant freshwater lagoon filled with eutrophic water, meaning it holds a concentrated blend of minerals and nutrients. However, no fish or marine life inhabit this lagoon, as the only organisms it sustains are algae. The surrounding waters teem with fish, though most remain some distance from the shore and the encircling reefs. Vegetation is also scarce, as only coconut palms and a handful of creeping plants appear resilient enough to survive being rooted in coral. The island is also overrun with poisonous crabs. It hosts more than a dozen seabird species, which treat the island more like a restroom than a habitat, leaving behind a sickening ammonia stench. Beyond its desolation, Clipperton Island is among the most isolated places on Earth, located roughly 621 miles from the nearest landmass, the Mexican coast. It was once allegedly named the Island of Passion, but more frequently, it has been described as a scab of an island. Given the events that transpired there, there's no doubt which name fits best. The Guano Wars and Colonization. Attempts to grasp Clipperton Island's most infamous chapter and how it unfolded, it's crucial to understand what set the stage. For over a century, the island was disputed among France, Mexico, Britain, and the United States. At various points in history, these four nations laid claim to it, each seeking control over the island's most prized resource. Surprisingly, guano. Guano, the excrement of bats and seabirds, was immensely valuable at the time, and Clipperton Island was blanketed in it. The reason for guano's worth traces back to 1804, when a German geographer visiting Peru observed locals using it as crop fertilizer. Noting the exceptional quality of the local produce, the geographer sent a guano sample to Europe. The study's outcome was larger, more abundant harvests of fruits and vegetables, igniting global demand. The only issue was the scarcity of locations rich in guano, most of which were small Pacific islands, rendering it both rare and precious. In fact, guano became so significant that in 1856, the U.S. Congress enacted the Guano Islands Act, permitting businesses to locate and claim such territories. During this period, and for over 30 years prior, Clipperton Island was recognized as Mexican territory. However, recognizing the lucrative potential, French Emperor Napoleon III dispatched a naval unit to the island in 1858. Their orders were to land and declare ownership to the handful of Mexican soldiers stationed there. To the French, this act alone secured their claim, but oddly, possibly due to its remoteness, they took no further action. 3 decades later, in the 1890s, an American company arrived under the authority of the Guano Islands Act to begin extraction, which continued for several years. Then, in 1897, Mexico reasserted control over Clipperton Island, expelling the French and removing the American workers residing there. 2 years later, the British arrived with their navy, then considered the world's most formidable. Since Mexico had reclaimed the island and knew it couldn't defeat Britain, Mexican officials struck a deal allowing England to mine and export the valuable guano. Abandonment, survival, and a reign of terror. In 1906, a 33-year-old Mexican military officer named Ramon Arnaud, along with 13 soldiers and their families, arrived on the island. Their mission was to establish a small colony to prevent further disputes over ownership. For Ramon, however, this wasn't voluntary. He was exiled to Clipperton Island as punishment for deserting his post just months after enlisting. After serving 5 months in jail, he was sent to the island in 1906 as both its prisoner and official governor, the remainder of his sentence. That same year, the Mexican president ordered a lighthouse constructed on the island. Upon completion, a man named Victoriano Alvarez was assigned as its keeper. Meanwhile, the British also contributed to colonization efforts, building homes and cultivating vegetables in the coral. Soon, the island housed around 100 men, women, and children from Mexico and Britain. This arrangement was short-lived, however, as the guano market collapsed, bankrupting the British mining company. With guano's secret revealed globally, competition flooded the market, driving prices down. All British residents departed, except one family ordered to remain and monitor the situation. Meanwhile, France and Mexico, still disputing ownership, agreed to arbitration, a process involving a neutral third party to deliver a binding decision. The King of Italy was selected as arbitrator, but while reviewing the case, the Mexican Revolution erupted in 1910. This plunged the country into uncertainty, diverting resources elsewhere. The islanders, accustomed to monthly supply shipments, were abruptly cut off in 1911 when the deliveries ceased. Unbeknownst to them, the supply ship had been attacked and sunk by Mexican rebels, and no replacement was ever sent. By then, with the British gone, only 26 people remained on Clipperton Island, reducing the demand for food. Still, supplies dwindled, and eventually, they realized they'd been abandoned. With no outside contact, they had no knowledge of the revolution or their nation's turmoil. 3 years passed before another ship arrived in 1914, an American vessel rescuing shipwrecked sailors. The crew informed Ramon of the revolution and World War I's outbreak. The captain urged him and the others to evacuate, but Ramon, fearing punishment for a second desertion, refused. The British family left, but the remaining colonists stayed behind, a decision that would unleash unimaginable horrors. Desperation, death, and deliverance. After the Americans departed, supplies ran out, and the British-maintained garden perished. The survivors relied on seabird eggs, occasional birds, coconuts, and feral pigs introduced earlier. Despite having calories, malnutrition set in, leading to scurvy, bleeding gums, unhealing sores, and eventual death plagued the colony. By 1915, the remaining settlers were frail and delusional from starvation. One day, Ramon spotted a distant ship and, desperate, set out with 3 soldiers in a small boat. Accounts differ. Either they chased a hallucination and drowned in a struggle, or waves capsized their vessel. Their wives watched helplessly as the ocean claimed them. Soon after, a hurricane struck. Ramon's pregnant wife, Alicia, guided the survivors to her basement, where she gave birth during the storm. Afterward, they emerged to find their colony in ruins. Then, Victoriano, the reclusive lighthouse keeper, appeared. Declaring himself King of Clipperton Island, he seized all firearms, keeping one for himself. For nearly 3 years, he terrorized the women, enslaving and assaulting them at will. He murdered a mother and daughter who resisted, and only Tirza, a defiant young woman, dared oppose him. On July 17, 1917, Victoriano ordered Alicia to his hut. Tirza, enraged, ambushed him with a hammer, while Alicia's son fetched his rifle. After a brutal struggle, Tirza killed him. Miraculously, the USS Yorktown arrived that same day, rescuing the survivors. The women and children were taken to Mexico, where they reunited with family. The Yorktown's crew kept Victoriano's atrocities secret for years to protect the women. In 1931, France was granted ownership of Clipperton Island. No further colonization attempts were made. If you've made it this far, thank you for reading. For story suggestions, submit them via the form in the description. See you in the next one.